This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Monza was a 6-mile behemoth. The speeds went over 200 miles per hour for portions of the lap. So of course, in typical fashion for this series, they flip the script and bring us to a track under 2 miles with a mere 6 turns and look to set the cars loose. Silverstone's national layout will be tight and the racing is expected to be close because of it. We'll see how everyone makes the transition as we get ready to watch round 8 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Johan Vandenbelt. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Johan, welcome back first of all. I'd say you missed out on the action last week, but I think you've come back in time to witness it this week as well.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. Monza always produces chaotic and hectic races in the 49, but if you put these powerful cars on a small and tight course, you still have drivers fighting over every centimeter of track. Now quickly, a little bit about Silverstone, because most racing fans will know its significance related to Formula 1, as the very first race was held here in 1950. Racing continued here for decades, including 17 years later, during the debut year of the Lotus 49. In that race, Jim Clark came out on top, scoring the second ever win for the car we see on track today. Now, as Joe just mentioned, we today use the national layout. This 2.6 kilometer course is actually quite a change from the normal Grand Prix or historic layout we see in the Lotus 49. A lot of the high-speed corners that dot Silverstone normally are removed and replaced with much more low-speed corners. The best places for overtaking will be on the end of the back straight, going into Brooklands, and if you're very courageous, going into Maggots. The qualifying is almost getting underway, but before we take a look at where things stand, let's take the viewers first for an onboard lap around Silverstone National.
All right, we're in the GSRC Lotus 49, so let's do a lap around Silverstone. Into Cops, it'll be tempting to brake later and later, but eventually you'll come in too hot and lose all your lap time trying to recover the car off the corner. Even though it's not the longest of straights, it pays to get the power down as you fly towards the Maggots-Beckett sequence. But instead of it being a set of S's, in the national layout it takes a little kink to the left and then shoots back into a hairpin. Both the braking and the acceleration will be tough. You're steering in low gears trying to build your speed up onto the Wellington Straight, which is never easy. Drift back across the track, and then you've got one of the better places to pass on the track, Brooklands. You just need to watch out because the apex is deceptively late with it tightening up towards the end. You get a tiny squirt on the power before Luffield, and from here, you're setting yourself up to try and dime it off this hairpin. Once again, the remainder of the lap requires a gentle right foot, both accelerating off Luffield and tiptoeing through Woodcote. But hopefully, if you've kept it all together, you've now finished a lap around Silverstone. You see the very quick lap around here. We're going to be doing lots of those today, but we'll get to that in a second. First, let's take a look at the championship points for the current situation. McClarridge is leading by quite a bit over Rob Olenek, but Nick himself has admitted that he might not be able to make all the races just due to other obligations. Gary Teal has been incredibly consistent lately. The only thing holding him back is a couple bad finishes early in the season, but the drop weeks certainly help him. He and Rob Olenek are in a tight fight for second place. In fact, there's no changes within the top 5. Trangrade's still there in 4th, and you've got 2 drivers tied behind him in 5th. What about the F2 championship? That hasn't been totally tight for much of this season.
No, absolutely not. We still see Hugh Haycox leading that championship with 120 points, but look at the gap between him and Hideki Kofiso. The Finn really loved the race last time around in Monza, scored 31 points and has completely closed down the gap to the driver in front. Behind him, Grand Prix and Colin Coker, they didn't finish with a lot of points in Italy, but Andrew Eng, he is one of the other drivers that did. He scored 34 points, over half the points he scored this season were scored in Monza. With that, he elevates himself to P5 in the Formula 2 Championship.
So let's take a look at the constructors real quick. This is the Teams Championship by nation. The United States is leading the UK, even though Claridge took another victory last week. He, of course, is expected to gain on them until he has to miss some races. Australia has been up there this season, competitive. Finland, unfortunately, going to drop a position. And then Germany gets back on there. Pawlowski has certainly been contributing recently, and he is expected to be fast today. What about the race details? I mentioned there's a lot of laps. How many we got in store?
We've got a blistering 38 laps today for the drivers at Silverstone National. It's also round 8 of our 12-round championship. 2/3 of the championship completed after the race today. 2 watermarks after that means that there's 2 drop weeks. We already had that a little bit in the championship standings just now. The 2 worst results of each driver will be removed at the end of the season. And the setups for the drivers are open. They can change it just to their liking. Points, very important to pay out to 25th position.
And with as many cars as we have today, looking just under 20, everybody is going to score points, but obviously the more the better. So we ride on board with Roman Pawlowski, who in his first lap is able to put it into 4th. Mick Claridge pointed him out as one he is watching out for because Roman beat him earlier this week. And Roman is on a second-timed lap currently. Now, you're going to see them go wide. And Johan, you and I were having a little bit of debate on what's considered inbounds. I know in my laps to create the lap guide, I couldn't find a limit. You said you could find one, but we're seeing there's still a lot of leeway to be had.
Yeah, I don't think there's a limit as much in that part of the track, because you could see Roman go all the way to the outside, just trying to limit the amount of oversteer he had, just get as much traction as he could. If he would have gotten an off track there, it would invalidate his lap, but as he comes over start-finish line, he sets a 53.391. He improves his time, doesn't improve his position, actually loses one, because I think it was Gary Thiel peopling him and sending him one position down. Gary Thiel is currently driving at P4.
The train grade also in front of him, and Rob Olenet continuing his great pace, only 0.2 off of Mick Claridge. We've got a couple others still finishing up their qualifying. Matt Wright is just starting his first flying lap, and I think he's the last one to be able to set any laps, looking through the rest that are putting them down for today. Everybody just warming up from here on out. We were both kind of shocked at how difficult it was to race around this track, and you're going to see that difficulty play out right here on the iRacing Esports Network. If you get the opportunity, make sure and subscribe. All you got to do is go to their YouTube page, click the big red button that says subscribe, and then you'll get all of the Grand Prix Legend Series in your YouTube feed. But Johan, I mean, viewers might be thinking 6 corners, clearly this couldn't be that difficult. I mean, explain some of the more tricky portions of this lap.
Well, the corner that we just saw Matt Wright take, Woodcut, that's one of the most difficult ones. This one, Cops, is actually one of the most straightforward ones, to be honest, because you brake and you know that the car will slide on exit a little bit. The next one, Maggots here, that one is very difficult because as you start to brake, you're steering to the left, so the car completely wants to snap away from under you. So you go back onto the throttle here, onto the Wellington straight. You just want as little oversteer as possible. You really need to maximize your traction. This is the point of the track where you reach top speeds as you go hard into the irons as you try to slow your car down for Brooklands. Difficult corner because immediately after you exit Brooklands you have to set yourself up for Luffield, and this is, well, apart from the exit of Beckett's, also a very important place where you need a lot of good traction to get as much speed as possible all the way onto the start-finish straight. One of the more difficult corners here, Woodcut. You can see Matt Wright almost lose it, actually losing it and flipping his car there. losing control, and that's something that we saw a lot in practice as well. That Woodcut is just one of those corners where normally you have downforce or mechanical grip, but in the Lotus 49 you don't have it at all, and you can see what happens with Matt Wright. You go to a replay of that incident, just sliding, and this time he couldn't save his car. It goes over his lid.
And that's not the first time we've seen Matt do that. At first I thought it was something of a glitch that we witnessed because he landed on his wheels, but I guess somehow he set up the car that he's at risk of turning it over if he spins. So hopefully he can keep control of that in the end. We watch Andrew Ang work his way around. I was wrong. We are at least going to have him get, I think, one timed lap in, but he's not going to be able to get around for another. This first one across the line, sadly for Andrew, is not going to count. He must have had an off track, so he did find the limits out there today. As we let these last 30 seconds tick down. 92 degrees on the track surface, a little bit warm, and that could make drivers slipping and sliding throughout the 38 laps. Let's go through our starting grid. It's going to be Mick Claridge on the pole with Rob Olenek in P2, with Ove Trangrade starting on the inside of row 2. Gary Teal will be P4, with Roman Pawlowski starting in 5th. Daniel Sadro has been having a pretty good season, starts P6 today, and then Marco Kika in 7th. On the outside of that row, it'll be Grant Petullo. Matt Wright starts 9th, and Philippe Urquhart starts in 10th. Johan?
Just outside the top 10, we find Stefan Slager, the Austrian, parks it on the inside of row 6. Behind him, it's Colin Coker with a 55-0 as well. David Sanchez, he starts on P13. He's being flanked on row 7 by Don Good. Andres Bruno starts the race in 15th, just in front of Jasmine Beach. James Ellis is the last driver with a timed lap, and there were 2 drivers that found the limits during their qualifying attempts. Armin Weber, that's probably one of the big names that starts far down the grid. He starts in P18. Andrew Eng, P19. He starts his race at Silverstone.
Cars already gridding up, and it's difficult enough getting off the line in these cars. You add in Woodcote, and suddenly you're having to steer and accelerate in the lowest gears of this car. We might have some spins. We might have some slow starts. This could be chaotic down into Cops. We'll find out soon enough as we get ready to watch round 8 here in the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series. Looking at James Ellis, one of the drivers starting a little bit farther back, being the last to put a lap time in. I say surprisingly widespread for such a short lap at 4 seconds. We could see traffic very much come into play and maybe offer opportunities to get a pass in. At this point, everybody has lined up on the grid, so the lights come up as the engines start to rev. Green flag is out here at Silverstone, and off the line, the top 3 are pretty good. Ove Trangrade looking strong, very strong for Pawlowski, who immediately moves into 4th place. On the brakes, we're seeing a few cars try to pull ahead out of Cops. It's a really good run for Rob Olenek, solidifying his 2nd place. So far, so they're all good.
Yeah, it's still all good, Angelica. Roman Pawlowski tries a move on the outside of Beckett's on over Trangrade, who came extremely close to having contact with Rob Olenek on the inside of Cops. Both cars went well. We see actually a very calm start, to be honest. I don't see any problems throughout the field, but up top, it is Mick Claridge. He has the lead in front of Rob Olenek. Roman Pawlowski still fighting with Ove Trangrade as they reach the left field now. It's Roman Pawlowski on the outside, Ove Trangrade on the inside. The battle for P3, Ove Trangrade on the inside seems to have more momentum as they go on throttle, but on the final part of that exit, is Roman Pawlowski winning a car length over. Trangrade wins it back. They keep it side by side. Gary Teal looking to thread the needle. He thinks the better of it, and it seems like Roman Pawlowski is getting that P3 position, Joe, but they keep continuing to fight.
Off the corner, Ove Trangrade just is way too good for Roman to seal the deal. As they come through the Maggots Beckett's onto the Wellington straights, Roman's not giving it up. Once again, swinging wide to try and carry that momentum. Can he finally get this one done? It's been nearly a full lap for these two. As they come up to Brooklands, he doesn't cover him off. He keeps the inside. And now I think he's got it done, as behind them, more battling taking place between Marco Kika and Daniel Sadro through Luffield.
Yeah, Daniel Sadro cannot hang on the outside of Luffield just like Roman Pawlowski did. He has to give in. Sadro in between Matt Wright and Marco Kika. Marco Kika elevates himself to P7 with an overtake. P6, I think, with an overtaking maneuver. Nick Claridge all the way up front. He has gapped Rob Olenek by over a second already.
So despite the fierce fighting, it was a pretty clean first couple laps. I saw a couple spin marks out there. I'm not sure who caused that. Otherwise, the only contact or mistakes I saw was Stefan Schlacher having a little bit of contact coming out of Magnus Beckett's on the first lap. As we watch Ove Trangerade give chase on Pawlowski. All that battling put a little bit of a gap between Pawlowski and Olenek, who's in second place, but the number 6 certainly seems to have speed despite his qualifying not looking too hot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Roman Pawlowski just now has to settle a little bit, get into his own rhythm, try to close down the gap to Rob Olenek, and don't worry too much about Ove Trangerade behind you. That's of course easier said than done. Last time around with a 53.3, he was 2/10 quicker than Rob Olenek. So he's starting to gobble down the gap to P2. Meanwhile, maybe we can focus the camera a little bit on Stefan Schlacher. We just mentioned he had contact lap 1. He doesn't seem to have a lot of damage. He is continuing, but he is fighting hard with Grand Prix. Grand Prix made a mistake coming out of Kopp's corner a few laps ago. He got overtaken by Stefan Schlacher, but ever since it happened, Joe, he's putting a lot of pressure on the Austrian.
Certainly looks like he wants that spot back. Early apex from Stefan Schlacher to cover him off. And they've both got Philippe Urquhart just behind them, trying to diamond off Luffield. We're right on board with Petullo, watching them come onto the pit straight through Woodcote. Can anybody get the advantage through this sketchy corner? Not quite. They're all nice and smooth through there.
Oh, but just look at the braking, how much... Oh, I think Grand Prix missed his braking point there, and he completely had to step on it to avoid rear-ending Stefan Schlacher, and that cost him a lot of track position. You can see visually the gap increasing quite a bit, but again under braking here for Magnus Beckett's. He just completely closes up to the Austrian.
Oh,
it's a lot of time there, slides a lot though.
And I thought he was going to get overtaken by Philippe, but Philippe certainly himself getting wheel spin off the corner, not able to take advantage. This is great news for Schlacher. Starts to pull away, but he himself has a big slide. He catches it. All of them struggling in their own way throughout these laps, and that's keeping them together.
Keeping together also happens behind him. David Sanchez, he's a little bit of cork on the bottom for a whole group of drivers behind him, including Don Good and Colin Coker. Colin Coker is right in the middle of that. He's being people are trying to overtake him left and right, and he's trying to return the favor of the people in front. Behind him, it's Armin Weber there on the outside of Kops trying a move on Andres Bruno. That fails, however. These 5 drivers are very close together as well, and are having a very hectic but entertaining battle to watch.
Well, if they stay together much longer, the laps are so short, the leader's so fast, Claridge could catch them and have to pick his way through a 5-car fight. Hopefully that won't be the case. We're right on board with Coker, looking back at Bruno.
Some contact just now in the backfield between Andrew Eng and James Ellis, and we run down towards Maggot's corner. Andrew Eng didn't expect, I think, James to brake so early, so there was some nose-to-tail contact there. Both cars can continue, however, and I don't think that Andrew Eng has too much damage. This is not what Andrew Eng wants after his good run in Monza last week.
I can report that Coker got passed by Bruno. Meanwhile, as we go up to second place, Rob Olenek, despite putting it on the front row, has suddenly been caught by Pawlowski, and Trangerade's coming along for the ride. We now have a 3-car fight for the second spot on the podium. They come through Brooklands, swinging it into the final hairpin of Luffield. Olenek 2.3 seconds off of Claridge and dropping.
And you were mentioning a few laps ago, how quick is Roman Pawlowski? We were wondering that. Well, I think I've got an answer to that. He's the quickest guy on the field at the moment. He is even quicker than Mick Claridge last time around. And I think that Rob Olenek is just holding him back. If Roman gets by him, Mick Claridge has something to fear, because With a few tenths per lap, Roman Pawlowski can close that gap before the race is over.
And fans of Don Good, sadly, we don't have to go to it, but he unfortunately made a mistake coming into Brooklands. He was towards the top of that train before. Now he's at the back of it because of that error. Now coming to Brooklands for this group. No such problems for these three. And I loved when we had the onboard, I believe it was of Trangarade, just how much they're sawing at the wheel on these cars on so many corners.
Yeah, and I think that woodcut is the prime example of sawing on the wheel on this track, to be honest. It's so difficult to keep it in a straight line. We saw that in qualifying, of course, with Matt Wright losing control there. Just imagine that you have to do it 38 times in basically 38 minutes. Just so much oversteer, trying to keep it in a straight line, but try to be quick at the same time as well. It's so difficult. These drivers are managing it at the moment. We see Rob Olenek still in front. Roman Pawlowski not able to try a move as they go towards Brooklands. He didn't have such a good exit out of Beckett. And that's really one of the things on this track though, Joe. As long as you're very good on the exits and if you're very consistent on the exits, you just don't give the drivers behind you a chance to make an overtaking maneuver.
Certainly it seems like it's taken big mistakes for people to be able to get the opportunity to send one up the inside. And I loved that low angle shot we had going onto the Wellington straight that Dougie gave us, because we see the cars bouncing around a whole lot out of there. And we talk about needing to get the power down. These cars have a lot of suspension travel, and I'm sure that's not making it any more fun trying to find the grip. Coming through Beckett's and onto the Wellington straight one more time. Here's that shot once again. You can just see them lift and get a little bit light over there. Pawlowski slightly under threat, but changes it to threatening Olenek down into this hairpin. Nothing comes of it, but looking, poking, and prodding to try and see if he can make an overtake.
Rob Olenek is driving the Tiger livery car, but it was Roman Pawlowski showing the teeth there, because that was showing himself as the brake for Brooklands corner. He really was far away and completely put his car almost side by side. He kind of has to, because over Trangarade at the same time, Joe, is putting him under a lot of pressure, especially on the exit of Beckett. You can just see the different driving lines of the drivers. You can see it here. It is Rob Olenek in front, taking a way tighter corner all the way around, while both over Trangarade and Roman Pawlowski try to go for the late apex. I think that at this point the straight might be sliding too short to really profit from that late apex. That's helping Rob Olenek just to stay in front.
And all this tension is happening behind what is a race that is as calm as a British tea time. Mick Claridge, 3.5 seconds up now, continuing to pull away. But as we ride on board with Pawlowski, Roman really showing us how tough it is to overtake at this track. They hit cops one more time. He closes in under braking, looking to try and get the traction off the corner, but nothing doing.
Cannot make a mistake. Just a quick update on David Sanchez. He went wide going into Beckett last time around. We don't have to go for it. He lost 2 positions to Armin Weber and Andres Bruno, and at the same time Don Good went for a spin, lost 2 positions doing that as well.
This is really where some of the best action is. The only other good fight that we have is down in that group that we were watching before, which is now broken up slightly. Here we see Marco Kika trying to chase down Gary Teal just behind them. Kika running P6. Teal with a top 5. This is going to break his 4-race podium streak if things stay how they are.
Maybe another battle that we can focus on that's actually really good to watch is the battle for P18 at the moment. James Ellis and Andrew Eng, I wanted to say they're going to be a thorn in the side of Mick Claridge, because look what they do. They both stop completely on the edge of the track to let all the leaders pass. That's something I've never seen before.
This is one amazing truce. They're still stationary. And now they're starting to go. That is one of the most incredible shows of sportsmanship I think I've ever seen. So they get going once again.
There has to be some communication between the drivers there, because the way they both got to a complete halt. Oh, it's Andrew Eng completely misses his braking point. Oh, that's race over for Andrew Eng. Maybe he just cooled the tires down a little bit too much there, standing still. He missed his braking point by quite a margin, hard into the wall there.
Yeah, I wanted it perfect. I wanted to see the onboard, because was he blinded maybe? Oh, no, it was the sign. It was the turning sign that kept him from seeing the way the wall jutted out at the end, and he got caught out. Well, sad to see that that is the way that he goes, because as you said, I don't think he's going to be able to return to the race after that. Oh, and we've missed Pawlowski managed to get by Olenek. I'm seeing if this was recent.
Yeah, out of
yes,
Cobb's
it was.
corner. Yeah, out of Cobb's corner last time around. But it was not really a Roman Pawlowski with a good move. It was more Rob Olenek making a mistake.
So he said that might be what it takes for someone. See, coming out of Cobb's. Oh, way wide. All the way into the grass. Barely catches it as it wobbles underneath him, and he stops it before Trangerade can manage to sneak through.
But now I am interested though to see the lap times between McLaren and Roman Pawlowski, because Roman, when he was chasing down Rob Olenek, was quicker than McLaren. Can he continue that kind of pace and just slowly chew down the gap to the Brit in front? It is an incredible 4.8 seconds already. And with roughly 23 laps to go, that's quite a big task to close the gap down. But still, he was very quick, a few tenths per lap. If Roman Pawlowski can keep that same pace, he might put Mick under a little bit of pressure for that P1 finish.
His last lap was a 53.1. Roman was a 53.4. So right now, he is not faster. He's going to have to work harder for this, and he's kind of towing along Olenek and Trangerade. But they're coming upon traffic. Jasmine Beach tries to stay out of the way, but unfortunately checks all of them up. Pawlowski barely catches the car. Jasmine now pulls off to the inside, and this gives Rob Olenek the chance that he was wanting. Covering off the inside early down the Wellington Straight. Roman trying to ensure that he doesn't get overtaken for the spot he worked so hard to get, and it's not going to happen.
Parking it there on the apex, very smart. Rob Olenek has to check up because of that, and that might give over Trangerade behind a chance for P3. I hope there's no damage between the P2 and P3 drivers, as they did have a little bit of contact because of the way they had to check up in Maggots. Ooh, Rob Olenek going very wide there over Trangerade with more speed, but not enough speed to try and move in cups. Rob Olenek immediately sliding through the corner, another mistake from him there. Roman Pawlowski is driving away over Trangerade. Had to check up a little bit there, but he is the inside for Maggots and Beckett's. Who is more courageous under braking? It seems like it's a Norwegian there, trying to keep it on the inside. He passes him. Rob Olenek, can he try to cut back? It doesn't seem like he has the speed. He has slightly more speed though. And in the draft, he tries to get the overdrive.
He's going to have slightly more of that speed as they come up to Brooklyn. So the side-by-side racing continues, with it being on the outside of the first half. Rob Olenek falls backwards. He's given space here in Luffield until Trangerade half shuts the door. Still, they continue, and all this fighting allows Pawlowski to break free, but he's lost plenty of time with that trouble with the lap traffic. So Roman is farther back from McLaren, but way ahead of this fight for third.
Yeah, to just put it into perspective. Oh, as you see a car spinning. That is McLaren is off! McLaren is off. He is off the track at the moment. What happened there? Some lap traffic in front of him. Colin Coker and David Sanchez were tangling with each other, and McLaren just got completely caught up in that.
And if I remember correctly, that's the second time this season that lap traffic has caused a headache for Mick Claridge. You can't really blame Mick too much on this one. He was trying to thread his way through what was a difficult situation. So he was the fastest car for much of this race. He's all the way back in fifth. Hopefully he's not too damaged. He's got a lot of cars to overtake on a track that's proving incredibly tough. And the driver that he pointed out as a threat is now leading. Roman Pawlowski is well ahead.
Yeah, and it's so difficult because both Colin Coker and David Sanchez had contact with each other in Maggots. David Sanchez tried a really late move on the inside of Colin Coker. I don't think Colin saw that on time. Because of that damage, both cars were probably a little bit too much focused on their own cars, trying to get it back into a straight line, and Mick Claridge just was too quick for them to keep in mind.
He's trying to overtake Gary Teal, but we're watching on screen there. Pawlowski having to get by traffic has allowed Trangrade to start to reel him in. Colin Coker was next. Colin maybe trying to stay out, but that checkup unfortunately interrupts the precious momentum of Trangrade. He loses a little bit of that time that he gained. So does Rob Olenek through Copse. Coker trying to stay out of the way, didn't really do much wrong there. Unfortunately, it's just in a tough spot.
Yeah, it seems like the top three is starting to be stretched out because of the traffic a little, but in P4 the battle is firing up. That's the one between Gary Teal and Mick Claridge. They're currently going over Wellington Straight at the moment. Mick Claridge has been putting a lot of pressure on Gary Teal ever since he got knocked down a few positions. Taking a look on the inside there, cannot put it side by side. Gary Teal knows that he is there now. See him in his mirror. Mick Claridge is swerving from left to right, trying to find a position where he can just prod for the overtake that he desperately wants. Through woodcuts, he's really strong here though. You can see that immediately, Joe, closing down the gap as they get to Copse, taking a look on the inside, and they're braking once again, just not enough.
And I can't help but smile because Teal knows that he's there, but he's not covering him off. He's just so confident in his braking that he doesn't feel like Mick Claridge can make the overtake. I've yet to see him defend so far this lap we've been following, coming onto the Wellington Straight, and Claridge is just mashing the throttle, trying everything he can to get by Teal, but you can see he's just too far back once again, and Teal, smooth as ever, keeps to the racing line, follows behind the car of Colin Coker, who they're about to lap. Coker moving out to the outside of Luffield, staying out of the way, and it looks like they're going to smoothly get by.
This time they get smoothly by, but Mick Claridge is still very close to Gary Teal. 2 car lengths between the two as they get to the rundown toward Copse corner. You can just see that Mick Claridge is he's putting so much risk in his laps at the moment to try to get every bit of track. It's almost like he's doing qualifying runs. You can see it on the rundown to Copse, how he just maximizes every centimeter of track he has. I see a car stopped in front of him. That's James Ellis letting some of the cars by, doing the same thing as he did a few laps ago. On the exit of Maggots on the Wellington Straight, there's David Sanchez just in front of them. Mick Claridge doesn't have a good enough exit to try and move, I think, going into Brooklands here.
Oh, this time we do see a little bit of a look to the inside from Gary Teal. Can't tell if that's from the lap traffic, who's not pulling out of the way on the first part of Luffield. Now Sanchez drifts to the outside, lets them both through. Nicely done by David. And they continue on their way. This is all behind the podium that these two are fighting, which is still close together. Pawlowski, Trangrade, and Olenek all equidistant apart for the top 3.
Let's go back to Mick Claridge because he's taking a little look on the inside. No, he just goes back to the racing line on Gary Teal. That's really the battle to watch, I think, at the moment. Will Mick Claridge get by Gary Teal? This looks like one of the better exits he has had out of Beckett's corner. Less than a car length. He's 100% in the draft. He chooses, sells the dummy. He goes back to the inside of Brooklands, but who's more courageous on the braking? It almost seems like Gary Teal's trying to keep it side by side there. If he can manage that, the next corner will be on the inside. Mick Claridge on the outside. Just look how much momentum he can take around Luffield there. Going back onto throttle, and it seems like Gary Teal cannot hang on now. Through woodcuts, both cars are sliding, twitching as they try to get the throttle down, and Mick Claridge gets it done as they reach Copse corner. He's back to P4.
Claridge knows what kind of car he has underneath him. Oh, as he slides through Copse, but he catches it. He always talks about the low-speed grip that he sets the car up for, and this time it helped him grunt around the outside of Gary Teal to move him into 4th place. Bit of Mansell-esque driving from Mick Claridge here down the Wellington Straight appropriately here at Silverstone. Teal tries to respond, but unfortunately Claridge starts to pull away slightly and gives chase on the cars ahead. It's a whole 6 seconds. He's running out of laps. We're already 24 laps in to this 38-lap race.
And the one thing that McLaren will be hoping for is a battle between Rob, between Ove, between Roman. That's kind of the only way that they will lose enough time so McLaren can catch up to them again, because a half a second per lap is just too much stress. Can you imagine with 12 laps to go?
And interestingly, Pawlowski, who has managed to put at least 8 to 9 tenths over Trangrade behind him, is incrementally pulling away, but it doesn't seem it's a huge advantage for the number 6. Ove is mostly keeping pace, and it seems like lap traffic is making the big difference.
Rob Olenek is actually the biggest outlier of the three, because he at the moment just cannot follow the pace of Ove and Roman in front of him. Last time around he was 0.6 of a second slower than Roman Pawlowski. Let's see what kind of lap times he does this time. Now he seems to recover a little bit, although he's still slower than both Roman and Ove Trangrade. So Rob Olenek just starting to drop away a little bit. That might give that opportunity to Mick Claris to close in the gap. You can see on top of the screen, purple, fastest lap for Mick Claris, first driver into the 52s. And he's having the red mist in front of his eyes. He's going to do everything he can to get back to that podium.
He's been set free. And we have to remind you that the championship battle right now is between Olenek and Claridge. And Claridge needs to maximize points because he expects to miss a few races this season. This is great news for Olenek if he can keep the pace and if he can stay ahead of Claridge. Oh, and I think, did we have a mistake from Schlacker? No, I think maybe it was a mistake from Urquhart. Must have been a couple laps ago. So I looked wrong. Philippe has been chasing Stefan Schlacker. That's the one that I was keeping half an eye on before as we were watching mostly the top three. There we see Stefan currently sitting in 9th after starting 11th. It's been a smooth 2 positions up for the Austrian.
Yeah, Stefan Schlager seems to get more and more comfortable in this car at the moment. Last time around, he did a 54.1. He just did a 54.3 as a lap time. Those are all lap times that are his personal best or close to his personal best. So the Austrian just getting into the flow at this point of the race, and he's trying to, or he is actually managing to extend the gap behind to Philippe Urquhart as they both pass the left traffic of James Ellis.
The drivers in front of him started out with some great action that we covered, and then it was so exciting up at the front we had to miss out on how that all settled out. Well, Teal is ahead of Marco Kika, who sits in that 6th position. He's been pulling himself away steadily from Daniel Sadtro, the 7th place car, who started this race in 6th, unfortunately not able to do anything to gain positions. And despite being number 3 on his car, looks like he's going to lose some iRating today. Matt Wright behind him also just gapping out similarly to about 7 seconds, running in 8th position. Matt Wright there having nobody to fight with. That's when you get back to Schlacker there in 9th position that we were talking about. This is really the closest battle on track besides the top 3 at that 1.1 seconds between them, and Stefan Schlacker has been extending that gap over Philippe in 12th place. Credit to Mick Claridge, who gave us the pronunciation on Philippe's name at one point in his lap guides that he gave throughout the season. He did one with Philippe at VIR, and Philippe gave us the proper pronunciation. Then you get back to Grant Petullo, another driver I don't think we've even really mentioned all that much. He sits in P11 for the moment back there. Has had something of an anonymous race, the Australian has.
And what driver behind him, Armin Weber, that's also an interesting one to keep an eye on, because he's actually the hard charger at the moment. Started in P18 without a qualifying time, winning 6 positions so far. And he's one of the drivers that at the moment you would say he probably had a quiet race, just picked up the positions when they happened. But looking at the race Armin had, he was fighting it. He actually struggles to get his car slowed down for Beckett's there. Struggling all race with a lot of the back markers, with a lot of fights he had to do to move himself forward, and a lot of battles he had to survive. At the moment, he'll probably relish the fact that it's a little bit calmer, although he's trying to close down the gap to Grand Prix. Let's see if he actually makes that before the race is over.
And you know, we talked about Claridge maybe not being able to get the win, but it's looking pretty likely that he's going to be able to close in on Rob Olenek. It is only 3.5 seconds between them with 9 laps to go. And I have to wonder if the number 2 car is starting to look in his mirrors and maybe getting a little bit nervous.
I mentioned a few laps ago, the thing that Mick Claridge needed was half a second per lap. And what is he gaining on Rob Olenek at the moment? Half a second per lap. He is doing exactly what he needs to close down to the rear of Rob Olenek on the last lap of the race. It will be exciting between the two to see who will finish on the podium. Meanwhile, the battle for P1 is heating up a little bit over Trangrade. He just made some mistake on the exit of Beckett's. That lost him, I think, 1 or 2 car lengths. But last time around, he was 0.3 of a second quicker than Roman Pawlowski. That helps him to close down the gap to under a second.
Yeah, the Norwegian's not giving up on this one. He's been known to steal races here or there. I'm trying to remember if we've seen Roman win a race yet so far on these broadcast races. As he comes across the line to notch up another lap lead. The gap stays at about 0.7 of a second. Nobody's going to make him work for this one.
At least this season, Roman Pawlowski hasn't won a race yet. He had to finish. Every time that he finishes a race, he actually finishes on the podium. 2 third places, 1 second place. So that's actually something that's going well for him. He hasn't been on the top step yet, and he is oh so close. The gap between him and over Trangrade on start-finish last time around 0.7 of a second. You can see on top of the screen now that it's slightly increased. Roman Pawlowski just has to keep the Norwegian behind him for 7 more laps. Meanwhile, Mick Claridge last time around only won 1/10 of a second on Rob Olenek. So that pace that he had, that pace difference that he had, seems to diminish a little bit now.
I wonder if Olenek is responding, or is Mick Claridge struggling as he pushed the tires too hard. It's not exceptionally hot. It's only 87 degrees on the track surface. So it hasn't hotted up out there. 6 laps to go. Time is starting to run out for the Brit.
One thing that the leaders didn't have to worry about for a few laps was traffic. Well, start to form again. Armin Weber is just in front of them. I think 3-4 seconds in front of them. And also Graham Patullo and Colin Coker are not that far in front. I think that those 3 drivers will be lapped before the race is over. That might throw another wrench in the mix, Joe. How will the traffic behave, and how will the leaders approach the traffic with only a few more laps to go? You know that over Trangrade is breathing down your neck, so how much risk do you take trying to get by them as soon as possible?
Only 12 drivers left on the lead lap out of 17 still running. 19 started. Good and Eng are only DNFs so far. So pretty good record for the field. Not the largest, pretty average turnout, but I'd say that's good considering we're up against the 24 hours of the Nürburgring today. Enough drivers have been able to jet out here to the UK to try and put a quick retro race in before they head over to the ring to try and compete. I know a number of drivers mentioning that they might drive in that one. So right on board with Trangrade again. You can see just how much he's having to struggle with that bright red Lotus wheel. They are gaining on Armin Weber very, very quickly.
Just a quick update, Mick Claridge last time around set the unofficial lap record. He got a little off track, so it's not official. But he did a 52.8. Well, he immediately does another 52.8, and this time it does count. So Mick Claridge is just putting the hammer down, and he has closed the gap to Rob Olenek to only 1.6 seconds. Twice winning 0.8 of a second and 0.6 of a second, and that really helps him to take giant leaps to the rear of that car in front of him.
Jaws music beginning to play in Olenek's ears, and the lap traffic behaving very well, you have to say, as we see Weber pulling off to the side for Trangrade. A lot of them just spotting the leaders in their mirrors and finding a good spot to pull over to let them through, seeing that some battles are happening or brewing in the case of third and fourth.
Yeah, looking through the rest of the field, there's no close battles at the moment. The only battles that there are the ones between P1, P2, and P3 and P4. Rob Olenek last time around, again 0.2 of a second slower than Nick Claridge. The gap between them is only 1.3 seconds, but in front of them, Ovid Schrenger is only 0.3 of a second behind Roman Pawlowski. Norwegian, here said it, cue the jazz music, he's getting closer and closer. With only 3 more laps to go, Joe, you start to wonder, where are you gonna make a move? Are you gonna change your racing lines to maybe give you a little bit more speed onto Wellington Straight, for example, so you could try and move here in Brooklands? How are you gonna approach it?
They're gonna get 2 laps to go this time by, and I believe, Colin Coker just gonna let them through nice and easy. Trangarade applying more and more pressure. It's going to have to take something aggressive if he wants to try and make a pass, or a big mistake from Pawlowski to open the door. As they come out of Copse, it doesn't happen this time.
Trying to break 4 maggots. This is really one of those places where you can just see visually over Trangarade winning 1 or 2 car lengths, but on their throttle. He struggles so much with oversteer. Well, in the meantime, you can see the different racing lines. Roman Pawlowski losing literally every bit of tarmac there is at Silverstone to try and get the throttle down as smoothly as possible. And you can see that he immediately wins a few tenths of a second as they go through Luffield. I see that the gap between them is 5-6 tenths of a second. And with 1 more lap to go, Joe, that's going to be a really difficult task for Over Trangarade to close and overtake.
He laid down a little more rubber than he would have liked to, and I think that sealed the deal. We'll find out. As you mentioned, white flag. Trangarade more than half a second back as Pawlowski looks to be nice and smooth. Up at the top of your screen, another fastest lap from Mick Claridge, getting to win 3/10. We'll get to that if that gets any closer. But right now, this battle for the lead is once again a bobble from Trangarade, getting too greedy out of Beckett's onto the Wellington Straight. Unfortunately, letting his right foot get a little bit too hungry for his head and for the grip that the circuit has to offer. Coming around Luffield, Roman Pawlowski has been all podiums, but it's going to be the top step of the podium here today as he swings it through Woodcote and wins ahead of Ove Trangarade behind him. Olenek withstands the pressure to close the gap for the championship lead as Mick Claridge settles for a 4th place.
Behind him, Gary Thiel's the final driver, finishing in the top 5. 12 seconds behind the leaders. Marco Kika wins 1 position. There's not a lot of battles anymore. Daniel Cedro coming through Woodcote at the moment. He finishes the race P7, losing 1 position. A little bit of no man's land at the moment. Matt Wright going through Luffield at the same time. He wins 1 position today, finishes the race in P8, and that after that heavy crash in qualifying. Good recovery from him. And Stefan Slager, that was one of the drivers we put a lot of focus on at the beginning of the race. He fought virtually the whole race with Philippe Urquhart. He bested him in the end. He comes home in P9.
Just on the lead lap too, because Grant Patullo is going to be the last one across the line on that lead lap. We're going to take a break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. If you stick around on screen, you can see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Silverstone. We just watched round 8 in the Grand Prix Legends Series. Roman Pawlowski, with his first win of the season, is very closely followed by Ove Trenkrade in second. I don't think they expected to be battling for the win the way the first half of the race went, but it all fell in their laps, and Rob Olenek had to settle for third. But he's probably happy with that because he was ahead of the driver he's battling the championship with. It was Mick Claridge who put it on pole, led most of the early race, but lap traffic caused him a little bit of a mess. And unfortunately, his spin sent him back down to 5th and 6th. Eventually, he was able to recover to 4th and just couldn't gain in time to regain the podium. Thiel was behind him in 5th place, with Marco Kika taking a 6th. Then Daniel Sadro finished 7th, with Matt Wright behind him at 8th. Stefan Schlacker withstood the pressure, taking 9th, and Philippe Urquhart took 10th.
The last driver on the lead lap, Grant Patullo, he comes home in P11. And there's a whole bunch of drivers that didn't manage to finish on the lead lap, starting with Armin Weber, the hard charger of today, winning 6 positions. Actually having a good race, but at starting position far down the order just cost him a lot of time and positions upwards. Andres Bruno finishes the race in P13, just in front of David Sanchez. Colin Coker, he had a really interesting race, especially with that contact with Mick Claridge during it. He comes home in P15 in the end. Jasmine Beach finishes 16th. The last driver finishing the race, seeing the checkered flag, is James Ellis. 2 drivers didn't see the checkered. Andrew Eng and Don Good had to retire before the race was over. They come home in P18 and P19.
We've got Stefan Schlacker ready to talk to us with his top 10 results. Steph, we were a bit surprised to see you hop in the car. How often do you get into the Lotus 49?
Pretty much not at all. I just jumped in here, had like 4 laps of practice, crashed every single lap, and then I felt really confident, I guess.
I'd say so. That's a nice finish considering that. Then lap 1, you had a little bit of a scare. You and Grant Patullo got awful close together.
I'm honestly surprised that nothing happened there, because on my screen I'm going right through his right rear tire there. So really lucky that nothing got registered there. I don't know, probably I went off a little bit on the brake, and thus having that overspeed. Grant also was a little bit slow, but hey, no harm, no foul. I gave him back the position too. So a little bit of a gentleman there. You have to do that sometimes.
Yep, this is certainly a gentleman racing car from what we've seen from a number of drivers. Now, you withstood some immense pressure from Philippe Urquhart behind you, though. The number 12 was keeping you on your toes, it looked like.
Yeah, Grant and Philippe, both of them really, from lap 2 on, after I got past Grant because of a mistake, I was under pressure all the time. My fingers start cramping up because I was focusing so hard on not doing anything stupid ahead of them. And it really worked out.
It certainly did. Top 10 and the lead lap. I think nothing to be ashamed of on such a short course, but nicely done. Hopefully we'll get to see a little bit more of you. This was fun to see one of our own GSRC commentators get out there, and a nice race today.
Oh, for sure. I will be back, and you're also going to see me in Camel TD today.
All right. So we'll look for that. Stefan Schlacker having his fun time out on track now that he doesn't have to be in the booth this, evening or afternoon, I suppose, for him. So with that, we're going to close up because nobody else has decided to come and talk to us today. So we want to give a thank you to the Lotus 49 community for bringing us back, and to iRacing for putting us on the iRacing Esports Network. Of course, make sure and subscribe to them when you get the opportunity. Go to their YouTube page and click the big red button. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Johan, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head on over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button as well, so that you don't miss a moment here on the GSRC. And next race is going to be down in Brazil, Interlagos. That'll be Saturday, May 11th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.